Here's an AMI This Week shortcut with Laura Bain.
All right, so I want to welcome everybody to the fourth episode of the Summertime Cooking, produced by Blind Man Cooking. Tonight we're going to be making grilled sausages and potatoes.
Dave Carragher loves to cook, and he's sharing that passion with others through his business, Blind Man Cooking. His kitchen skills are self-taught, and he's adapted over the years to gradual vision loss due to retinitis pigmentosa. To tell us more about his business and his food, he's joining me from St. Stephen, New Brunswick. Dave, thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Laura.
So how did you get into cooking?
Well, actually, I've always been interested in cooking. I've been in the kitchen since I was quite young, helping my parents and my grandparents. When I was going to university and stuff like that, I started really getting interested in, making my own food to take to campus. So I wasn't spending so much money and also was able to eat better as well. And then it's kind of flourished from there.
And why did you want to turn it into a business?
Well, as a partially sighted person, I was struggling to find, full-time meaningful employment. I had a lot of time on my hands while I was looking for full-time employment that I thought that, this might be something I could do as a side business if I found full-time employment, or, I could make into a full-time business.
Right, so that's when you started Blind Man Cooking. So what exactly is Blind Man Cooking and what do you offer?
Yeah, so Blind Man Cooking is a business that I started back in 2018, where I started teaching basic or easy to accomplish cooking recipes out of my house. That's one side of it, and then another side of it is where I also offer baked goods that I sell at local markets.
Right, so the name Blind Man Cooking, maybe it's a little bit obvious that you are a blind man and you're cooking, but I understand there's a little bit more of a story behind the name.
So the story kind of came from a hashtag, like a goofy hashtag I started, way before I started into a business, where I was cooking dinner by myself in my house, and I opened a bag of pasta. And while I was waiting for the water to boil, I had already opened it. And as I was feeling around for the pasta, I knocked it all over the floor. It just kind of turned into a hashtag, all Blind Man Cooking. I made a big mess. I've always tried to make a positive spin on myself, being visually impaired or partially sighted. In 2018, when I was looking for a business name, I wanted it to be short and snappy and something that people could really relate to and remember.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that a lot of us can relate to. Certainly I can relate to that moment of knocking the pasta all over the floor, or having a bit of a disaster in the kitchen and just sort of having to laugh about it, or maybe like hashtag blind fails.
Yeah, for sure.
So how would you describe your food?
I would describe my food as easy and straightforward but delicious recipes. Homemade, home style.
Yeah, when I've seen some of your food posts on Facebook, I always think like it's comfort food, but I know that you try to put a little bit of a health spin on things as well.
Yeah, I definitely do.
So you've run a couple of virtual workshops this year through the CNIB. I'm wondering how you make a virtual cooking class accessible for a blind audience.
Everything I do is verbalized for the people that are either partially sighted or totally blind. And I like to start my virtual classes by kind of running through like all the ingredients in the recipe, kind of talking about the utensils that I'm going to use. And then I'm talking about, where I place things, putting stuff on a tray or pushing the chopped vegetables to the right side of the cutting board. So it's like I'm doing described video basically for what I'm doing.
So Dave, you grew up in Meadowbank, which is a small community on Prince Edward Island, and I know that you split your time between Meadowbank and St. Stephen, New Brunswick, which is also a small community. So what challenges do you experience as a partially sighted person trying to grow a business in a rural community?
Definitely being able to teach my classes online have definitely made it a lot easier. There isn't any real public transit here. So that makes me have to rely on, my family, my partner, or, getting rides from somebody else. The benefits of living in a small community is that people are more supportive and willing to kind of lend a hand.
So Dave, if people want to find out what you're up to and connect with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, people can follow me on both Facebook and Instagram. You can find me at Blind Man Cooking. And also you can email me at blindmancooking2018@gmail.com.
So Dave, thanks so much for joining me and filling us in about Blind Man Cooking.
Thanks so much for having me, Laura.